Welcome back to Overlord Anime Review I believe this is part 6. Yeah, part 6. This I'm reviewing the third season of the Overlord anime. This one adapts books 7 through 9, but the adaptation process for this particular season is quite weird. I mean, it starts off with book 8, and it goes book 7, and then book 9. But here's something I thought was really weird of how this was adapted. For book 8, they pretty much adapted most of the stuff that was seen in the novel itself. Plus, they took some bits book 7. Like when the season starts out, they adapt for the opening like couple minutes of the episode. They adapt the opening scene from book 7. They also adapt another scene in book 7 where they see the character Hamsky training with the Lizardmen. Of course, Lizardmen are subject to return for book 7 anyways. And then comes the weird thing to do with this thing. Then, for the first portion of the episodes, of course, book 8 was adapted for episodes 27 to 31, basically 5 episodes. For the first half of these episodes, they adapt the second side story. This is the strange thing about book 8. There are 2 side stories in the thing. And that's it. Mostly put in the case second side story. They keep mostly everything in, except they do trim down a couple things. Now, in the case of the opening episode, there is a scene where you have this is funny scene where you have Ainz practicing in the mirror all of his poses that he does, like silence. Yeah. And of course, he briefly falls on his bed, and he goes to his chair, and he goes to the office, and he just does a little arm swinging thing. It's like, and then Mary, who is the male elf, even though he dresses up like a girl, went up. Yeah, the way he sat down was awesome. Like good pose of a ruler. Which I'm like, that's interesting. Yeah, this is also the same episode where, of course, everyone goes on the separate assignments, and then of course they decided to go to, well, then the episode ended with Albedo jumping on him and looked like she was about to rape him or something. And then the thing cuts the credits, and then all of a sudden we see a bathhouse scene, which I'm like, okay. Now, I should point out, though, the scene which the Albedo is on top of Ainz, that is from the light novel, but there's a little bit more to it. And she doesn't get punished for what she did. Basically a minor punishment. I don't remember what it was, but it was a minor punishment. For some reason, they cut it right there, and then they cut straight to the ending of the second side story, which I'm like, that is weird. Yeah, and as for this scene, at the end of the first episode, this is taken from the last bit of book 8. This is how book 8 ended, with this particular scene. Though it's actually, there's a little bit more here in the light novel than in the actual show itself. In the show, it's like a minute scene. It's like, you see Ainz, Demiurge, Mary, and Kykotis all in the male bathhouse, and the female guardian's over next door. And there's a line which I'm kind of happy they kept from the light novel. And I think it's Shaltair says this, where he says, I didn't realize you were so hairy down there, Albedo. Yeah, I think, well, because they're women, they're looking at each other butt naked because Japanese style bath. And of course they get attacked. And it's like, oh yeah, that is a Lucifer, so let's go into action. Of course, this is also the same episode, like prior to we see Ainz taking a bath. It was unusually possible using a slime to clean himself, like clean all his bones, because he's a walking skeleton. So there's that. And of course we have the characters having a day off, and the way he describes it, the reason why he's given a day of rest, because he doesn't want to feel as though he's running a sweatshop, which makes sense. So the female guardians, which is Albedo, Shaltair, and Ani, the female dark elf, where they just have a day off, and they have Albedo summon this warhorse. Of course, Albedo is wearing her armor. And despite the fact that, and of course she gets on the horse, and apparently she can't ride. Apparently the horse is exhausted after being on the horse for like a good minute. And Shaltair pulls a book out of nothing, and she also says this book was a gift from Ainz. Yes. Just like how, in the case of Albedo got her ring. I'm trying to think, what did Erina get? I think she got, I'm trying to remember what she got. I don't think it was a ring. I'm not sure. There was a gift that she got from Ainz. And of course, Albedo does this thing where she has her hand over her lower belly because she really wants to have Ainge's child. And of course, she kind of thinks about this. Even the current novel, even book 10, she's doing this as well. I'm reading book 10 right now. I'm about 2 chapters in. I will do a review of that in the near future. Yep, and of course, after Charlotte reads the book, it's like, okay, you have to be pure. And of course, the whole thing about this, because, well, Charlotte, because of Albedo being a succubus, and apparently, because of the fact the whole thing is she's been around men long, she's never slept with anybody at all. So, she's saying that she is a virgin, and in the case of Charlotte, she technically is not a virgin because she's mentioned she's never had experience with men, but she has had experience with women. And she mentions her fetish she mentions a minor mention of her fetish for undead flesh. Yeah, she has a thing for that. Yeah. But in the case of that one, I gotta say, with the exception of the way they handled episode 1, I'd say for what they adapted for the second side story, it's adapted really well. It's a good day off type of thing. And then, of course, we have the village stuff, mentioning about, of course, this happened at the same time, too, mentioning stuff about the giant of the east and the snake of the west. And apparently, the redhead female maid, I think her name was Luna, where she knew about it, but she informed Ainz about it. Of course, they mentioned things with hobgoblins, and of course, she also was given a new potion, which is purple. Yeah, apparently this is special. Oh, a purple potion. Because it's mentioned that apparently the only color potion they can make in this world is blue potions. And this all kind of started by pure accident when he's given a red potion, which has the appearance. This is taken from an adventurer. By the way, this redheaded adventurer who appeared last in season 1, she comes back and she becomes a citizen in this village. And she's there for not only for the episodes of book 8, but she's also there for book 9 as well. And she had to leave the village. This is also during the period of time when Eri, who is his village girl, who also is the command of the goblins and orcs. He actually gets orcs, like about 5 of them. And she's named chief of the village because, well, the scene itself, this actually is trimmed down a bit from the light novel, where she's basically offered us off screen. Of course, it's a little more detail in the light novel. Now, in the case of a meeting with a chief, this is the second time this has happened. Now, in the case of what they did with the show, when they did with this in the first season, it's more of a minor montage, like a narration of all the stuff. While in the case of the light novel, it's explained a little more detail. Here, it's kind of like they cut out the conversation and have her reacting to being offered the position of chief. Eventually, she does take the position. In the case of the previous chief, he's only in his mid-40s, and he's probably only about 20 years older than Eri is, so he just takes it up because he feels like it. Retires and gives to her because she wants someone young to take up the role, and because she has a lot of respect for the villagers, but also having a group of goblins work with him who also built this gigantic wall around the village. Yeah, so she takes the position, and let me think here. Yeah, so they bring in the hobgoblins, which they kind of look like goblins, except they're a bit of a lighter green. Yes, they're led by the fourth son of the head of this hobgoblin tribe, which is known as Agado. Yeah, and this is pointed out by the female adventurer. I think his name Bree. I think her name is. Yeah. I'm trying to think what else is there for book 8. See here, and then of course they also have the attack by the outside forces. And of course they fend them off. And of course that's when they get the 5 ogres. And of course then Luna reports to Ainz about, like, she gets chastised by Ainz for failing to report about the giant of the east and the snake of the west. So he sort of chastises her for this and punish her for failing to report the information. But the reason why she doesn't get punished because she does get recommended. She does not get punished because she's given something that she was asked to give Ainz, the purple potion. So yeah, they have her. It's like, okay, there are three people who you need to protect in that village. Everyone else is expendable. You need to protect Naren, his girlfriend, and his grandmother. Though he does add a little bit later, he does add Ares' little sister. Yep. Now during the attack itself, that's when Naruto, I think that's the name of the pharmacist, he confesses his feelings for Eri. Of course, this is a funny scene later, which I don't know if she forgot about it. I don't know. I think she does know about him being attracted to her and being in love with her. Yeah. So Ainz is to go out to visit the giant of the west, well, the giant of the east, with Outer Amari, I think her name is. Rides in the back of Heimski, and pretty much this scene is exactly the same it is in the light novel. There's not really much change. It's like good conversations, like who's like in love with. Yeah, and Ainz treats her a lot like his own daughter, which not bad. Even though she mentioned she is 70, which is quite young for an elf. Even though appearance-wise, she looks like she's 12. And Ainz looks at her with like, man, like this girl is skinny. And he just lightly uses both hands to kind of pat on their sides, and she kind of blushed like, Ainz, is it something else? Which I thought was quite funny. Now, in the light novel, it's mentioned that he kind of patted her back. In the show, he's patting her sides with both hands. My guess this is probably the change. This is just a minor change. I think it was probably a little. I don't know if it was appropriate for him to lightly pat her lower back. Probably because it'd be a little bit uncomfortable for viewers to see this. So switch it to her sides. Not a bad idea. They meet the giant of the east, and just like with Heimski, he's disappointed. And the giant of the east is a freaking troll. Yeah, I mentioned this dark sword. Then they send this creature out there. They eventually do defeat him pretty easily because the thing is like it has regenerative abilities. And they take the sword. The leader of the goblins takes the sword and keeps it as his own personal weapon. And the snake, he's pretty much made immediately Ainz's subordinate. He doesn't have to use the despair spell like he used in Heimski and using it on these trolls, because he's already scared of him anyways, because just by his mere presence he's intimidated by him. Yeah. But when it comes overall, the rest of book 8, it adapts it really well. I mean, with the exception of the minor change and a couple cut trimming down, book 8 was adapted really well. And of course, the thing ended with Naruto, Eri, and Ares' sister being invited to the tomb of Nazari. And of course, mentioning prior to this, they mentioned the Demiurge about them inviting a male and female human and a child, Ares' sister. And Demiurge, fantastic, because the guy is so smart. He points out things, just like some little life for the kid, and of course, Ares' sister is so amazed by his throne room, and of course, even though that Ares has seen him like in his he's seen his skeletal appearance, he keeps up the whole clothes of the robe and the metal gauntlets and the cursed mask. So she's so amazed by his throne room, and then he voluntarily takes her on a tour of the place. I kind of wish Albedo was in this particular scene. Like, you could have added her here as like having her react to seeing humans in a tomb of Nazarick, even though these are not the first humans to have been here, because you have you have that maid, which Cerberus brought to the place. Of course, it's mentioned at the start of it that he takes her on sort of a shopping date because he wants to get her clothes and the other duties. Perfectly fine. Having Cerberus do it is a fantastic idea because, well, he's one of those the best. And of course, they go off to dinner, and Eri holds her new lover's hand, and that's how the book 8 episodes ended. Really good. Book 7, from what I can tell, it's really well adapted. I don't think anything was cut here. Nothing I could think of, no. I mean, mostly it's just a group of workers, which I'm thinking workers. When I read this, even in the book, I'm like, workers? You mean people who wear suits, like doing office work or some other type of workers? No, these are people who are apparently former adventurers who just hired just for money. and they're hired to invade the tomb of Nazarick, an invasion that was arranged by Ainz himself, who decided to go into his mom and pose. And Pandora's factor is mentioned here, but here's the thing for this season: despite the fact he's actually in Book 7, he is nowhere in this whole season at all. I mean, he's referenced a few times, so I'm glad he's still referenced. I kind of wish he had physical appearance by him. I know he's in the shorts and the OVAs. I kind of wish he was in the main series itself. Yeah, and there's the main group of people who actually get a lot of focus here is this group of 4 adventurers. I'll be back soon, okay? Alright, but until you see the next review, bye.